Hello, and welcome to Take Heart Journey. This week is all about looking back at where we have come from. It's all about our roots, and we have been talking about roots and working on that solid foundation from the beginning of Take Heart. And so the way that I want to focus on that theme today is in our art. I recently had a chance to go back and flip through my very first art journal, Farrell's Notebook, and part of me was wondering if I would look back and I would cringe at all, but I still have those same feelings of joy and pride and happiness when I see those first pages that I ever made. And a lot of them honestly had so much intention and thought. I spent days and days on them, and they actually really inspired me. And one of the things that inspired me the most is I was remembering the supplies that I had at the beginning. Since I started making mixed media, I've acquired a lot of different colors of paint, different mediums that I like to play with, stencils, things like that. And some of it has been gifts because that's what people know what to get me now for, birthdays and holidays. Some of it has been a friend that moved and she gave me a ton of her art stuff. And then some of it has been things here and there that I've slowly acquired. But I look back at the beginning, and it was when I was using half of our kitchen table, and my supplies were an art journal, paintbrushes, and then I had kids' craft paints. So I had acrylic paints, but craft paint. And they were all like half used up, and I think I had just a handful of colors, and that's what I used. And when I look at those first few pages, what that meant is that I was always playing with those colors. I was mixing them. I was seeing what matched. And a lot of that goes away when you start buying colors in the tube that you really love. And that's exciting too. I'm not going to give that up. But for today, I wanted to go back to the basics and just use, like I did at the beginning, a very simple color palette. And I used green today, and it was green, white, black, and brown. And that's all that I had on my palette. And so I used very limited paints. I used a Trader Joe's bag to make some collage paper, and I used my regular art journal. And I absolutely love what I made today. And it's a different technique than I've ever used before to make my landscapes, and I not only love the finished product here, but it inspires me that if I were to sit down and paint a landscape without collage paper, it gives me ideas of what I would want to do. So this is a really easy project today, but that is so satisfying. I think that the end result is so beautiful and really exciting to me. So I hope you enjoy this project as much as I did. And I hope that you can take a minute to flip back through the very first art that you made and inspire yourself. What were some of those early techniques that you used? What were some of your first supplies or your favorite colors at the very beginning? And let that beginning, those roots of your art, inspire you. And if you are making art for the first time, let me just tell you, you are about to inspire yourself, amaze yourself, and in my case at least, this really made me more tender and loving towards myself. This art journey, this ability to make art that wasn't perfect and find joy in it. It's really been, not to be cliche, but a self-love journey too, that I can make imperfect things. They can bring me joy, and I'm really proud of myself for everything that I have made. So have fun this week as you return back to your roots and do this really cool technique that I think there's just so many things we could do with this. And let's get inspired and make an abstract landscape. Let's go. All right, this is an awesome project that I am so excited about it. I know that I will use this technique again and again, but I'm going to start by just painting in something on my background. So I have here some ivory and some white, and I'm mixing them together and just covering the page with paint. Now, doing this gives me a low pressure way that I have my first layer down, I have something to respond to, and I've already done the hardest part, which is cover that blank journal page staring back at me. So if you'd like to use these same colors, you can add some of your white and your brown together to get the ivory, or you could just cover your page in white, but we're just going to put down this first layer and also use it to add a little bit of texture for when we add down the blue for our sky. So step one, just cover your page with a white and off-white mix. After I've covered the page, while the paint is still wet, I'm using the other end of my paintbrush to just write into that paint. Now, it's really hard to see on camera, but this really did write into that paint, and it's a really satisfying thing to push through a layer of wet paint and journal a little bit. I like adding my words to my art journal pages, even if you can't see them in the final version. You can kind of see them there. Okay, it is time to make our collage paper. I have a piece cut out from a brown paper shopping bag, and then next to me I have green, I have white, brown, and then black is what I just added. And so I am going to mix up my own colors. So there I have the green, brown, and a drop of black because I was really craving like a really deep dark green. And who knew that you could get that color from the bright green that I put on the palette. And so I am going to just keep playing around with all the colors that I have on my palette, and I'm going to paint kind of stripes, I would say, big sections of my collage paper with the colors that I make. And then when I want to, I'm going to add little marks here and there. So now I took that dark green color I'd already made and added in the bright green, and so I've got a little lighter of a color that I am now going to add onto my collage paper. Now the thing about this is there's no way to do it right or do it wrong. As you start to kind of treat this page like a coloring book, cover the entire thing with paint and with marks of all different shades of green, it's already going to start looking like a landscape. And our goal with our abstract landscape today is to inspire us that we can look at it and see something that we didn't even mean to put down. A lot of my favorite abstract landscapes that I see when I watch somebody paint them, it doesn't make sense. Like they'll just put a big blob of white and all of a sudden it looks like there's a lake, or they'll do big black lines and it will look like grasses. And that's the thing about abstract, is that there's just this freedom there that you can't be super controlled and realistic. And so I used this exercise to practice some of that freedom and to look for some of those moments I may not have been able to create purposefully myself. So now that I've gotten the dark green at the top, I started adding in white a little bit at a time and getting a lighter and lighter green. And now I'm adding in a lot of brown with a little bit of white, a little bit of green. And so I really just want all different colors all over my page. And I hope that you can see from this paper bag that you do not need a huge paint collection. I mean, look at what I was able to make just from those colors. So now I'm going to add some splatters. I added a little bit of water into my brown, and I'm adding brown splatters on the page. And then I did something else really fun where I dipped my paintbrush in a couple of colors and without mixing them together, made these really fun and satisfying loops. So as you paint, find things like that are really fun to make. And even if you're like, this doesn't look like anything from a landscape, just do it because it's really fun. And then you can figure out, like, this playtime is how you figure out new techniques and things that you really like. All right, so I've set aside my collage paper to dry, and now I have out some blue, and I added a bunch of white into that blue, and I just want to paint the top part of this page to make it the sky. And the thing that I really liked about this is that the writing that I did with the other end of my paintbrush really ended up adding a lot of texture to this final look, especially in person. There's kind of like big cursive letters looping through the sky, which is really, really fun. And as I paint this, I'm trying to figure out what I want my composition to be. Do I want the land to be the bottom third of the page or 2/3 of the page? And so I'm going to fill in the sky to give myself options for both. And I hope you see that there's nothing perfect about this. I am just mixing up white and blue and kind of doing the same thing I just did on the collage paper, but with the sky. So I have different values of blue up there. So some of it could be clouds, it could be fog rolling in, but I really liked how this sky turned out. I am going to one more time flip my paintbrush and write into this paint because it's really fun to do that, and just adding more of my thoughts and ideas down onto the page before I move on to the next step. And I'm also going to make some splatters again, which I do by mixing some water with paint, putting my brush in it, and then using something else to hit against and put some splatters on the page. So that's what our background looks like. Look at our beautiful collage paper that we made. I am laying this down on the page to try to figure out if I want it just 1/3 of the way covered or 2/3 of the way covered. And I'm also playing with which direction I want this to go. And I have to warn you, you're going to have to really trust me for this next part, because we are going to cut our beautiful collage paper into strips. And I made mine pretty thin, and pretty straight. Every once in a while, if there was a detail that I wanted to stay on that same strip, I might add like a little bit of a curve to it. But that's really it. I just cut this thing up and was like, oh no, I hope that this works. But what I'm trying to do is practice adding randomness to my abstracts, and also practice looking at a landscape in a new way, because after we cut up these strips, we're going to put them all down, but in a completely different order than we painted them. And so what that means is all these different colors that we put down on the page are going to end up in all different spots in a way we never could have accomplished if we just had a paintbrush and were painting straight onto the page. So the goal today is that our collage is just going to feed our creativity, and also I hope feed our freedom, because again, there is no way to do this project wrong. There's no way to mess this up. You've just gotta be brave and cut up that collage paper and then get ready for the next step. All right, now that I have cut up this collage paper, I am going to lay it down, and I am trying to do it somewhat randomly so that, I'm not just puzzle piecing the collage paper back together. I want to move those colors around and turn it into something completely different. And I have used collage paper before to make mountains and rolling hills, but the big difference here for me is that these strips are so thin, and so I'm really just laying one on top of another. And I started with the bottom third of the page here, putting down the strips like that, and then you'll see that as I play around with them, I decide to extend the land even further. And so this part's really fun. You don't need to spend too long on it. I think the main thing I was looking for here was variety. If two strips next to each other were too close in color, I wanted to add a little bit of variety in there and put down the next strip. And so this part was really satisfying to just be in the flow and play with pieces of paper, touch them, move them around. This was really, really fun to see what emerged before my eyes. All right, if I were you, I would take a picture of how you laid everything down, because that always helps me when during this part everything gets rearranged a little bit. But it is time to glue everything down. I'm using matte gel, which is like a clear acrylic paint. And so I put a layer underneath and a layer on top, and it will seal everything together. And you will also see that I'm not worried about the length of these strips, just because I really did not want to spend too much time fussing and making everything just so. The whole idea was that I wanted this to be free and loose, and I wanted things to happen that wouldn't have happened if I were trying to control every single element of the page. And so I'm going to glue this all down using my matte gel, and it's going to look different than it did when I first put it down, but that's again part of what I'm going for. And this strip here that I'm putting down ended up being one of my favorites, because that like gray brown section in the middle really intrigues me in the final product. Like it looks like something. Like, what is that in the landscape? I love it. And so, when I first put this all down, it was hard to look at it and not just see strips of paper. But after stepping away from it and taking pictures of it, it really looks like pastures, like rolling hills. I feel like there could be sheep in these hills. There's trees. Every single little mark and every single little splatter that I made adds to this landscape, and I love it so much. I hope that you're inspired to make your own abstract landscape, and you don't need that many supplies, and you don't even need that much time with this. This is just I'd say like half an hour to 45 minutes of art making, and you get this really, really cool result. And so have fun with your abstract landscape. Have fun going back to some of the first pages that we've made where we used collage techniques like this. Now, in case you're wondering what I did about the edges hanging off the sides, I waited for it to dry and then just took some scissors and trimmed the edges of the pages here. And I also wanted to tell you that if you wanted to, you don't need to be done at this stage. You could always pull out other pieces of collage paper that you have and add it to your abstract landscape. And so I'm going to do that with some little pieces of napkin that I have to just add some of these blue dots to the page. And so you are welcome to do that. If you look at it and you want to add some polka dots with a Sharpie, if you want to add some collage paper because you see something in your landscape that needs to be there, go for it, because that's what this is all about, is looking at it in a whole new way. I hope that you have enjoyed this new technique that inspires creativity and fun, and I hope you enjoy playing with this paper as much as I did. I can't wait to see what you make.